This is Rating Descending,
where we watch IMDb's Worst 250 so you don't have to.
My name is Michelle St. Clair.
And I'm Abigail Ward.
And this week we watched Nutty Professor 2, The Klumps. Scientist Sherman Klump's inventions, his upcoming marriage to his pretty colleague Denise Gaines, and his reputation are threatened by his evil clone, Buddy Love. Let's watch. This is our first remote recording.
It is. I have moved out of the Northcote home into the Thornbury home.
Yeah.
And now we're operating this show online, digitally, remotely, safely. Get vaxxed today.
It's completely digital. Before, it was an in-person analog experience translated into bits and bobs, streamed over the internet. Now, there's not even an analog component apart from these here vocal cords. I hate this manner of speaking.
I don't know enough about the technology that I say we, but you use to record this podcast.
Sure.
So all of that flew over my head. But digital, analog, I mean, what is analog? You know, what is the digital world? You know, it's not my fault that I'm unaware of these things. It's society that's wrong.
It's literally me talking about just how your voice goes into a microphone and then we stream it online.
That's too much. Reel it back here. Speak English.
Sorry, I'll explain it like your child. Your mouth make-a the noise.
Stop right there. We're going a bit too deep here, a bit too far.
Okay, hang on. The big hole sounds.
Oh.
That's a good baby. Now, time for Mommy's Milkums.
Oh, God. Not this again.
Recurring theme of the podcast is Mummy's Milk.
No, recurring theme of the podcast is Michelle doing elongated bits where you're like a disembodied motherly creature staring down at me saying ominous things. And then I get sucked into a vacuum.
That's all I am, is I'm a disembodied motherly creature. That's going to be my new Insta bio.
Yeah, that's hot. I have moved house since we last spoke, and fuck me dead, moving is stressful.
Yeah.
I became feral. I forgot who I was for a while there. Everything was making me snap because I was very, very stressed.
If I remember, you had to grab some stuff from our house, well, now my house, and you were just doubled over, just feasting on scraps in the corner. Like, you really did go feral.
I was just eating the clothes that I didn't want to take with me to Thornbury.
Yeah.
Just tearing them into little bits and just shoving it into my mouth.
Yeah,
It's quite an experience.
That's experiential is how I would describe it, for sure.
Oh, for sure. I think about this all the time. My dad has Crohn's, and I've also been sick with autoimmune stuff recently. But he asked his doctor, what to do to alleviate stress. And his doctor was like, well, don't get married and don't move house. And I did both. Well, I'm going to.
Abigail Ward, refusing doctor's advice since 1995.
But it's fucking true. Moving house is one of the most stressful things you can do. And I think every time I do it, I'm like, I got this under control. I'll wing it. The day of, we'll be fine. And then the day of, I'm like, for Jesus fucking Christ, get everything in a fucking van.
No, hang on. Because you said, we all do this relatable experience. That is not how I move at all. That is fundamentally different than how I have planned any move that we have done together prior to this point.
Well, what I'm saying is, why don't you try it? Just try it.
To be fair, from an outside perspective, it looked like the breeziest move I've ever seen in my life.
Did it actually?
Well, that's because it was the night before, and Brooke and I, my partner, were saying to each other, she hasn't packed. Is she still moving tomorrow? What's going on?
But we got it done.
You did.
Yeah. Not bad. Yeah, my kind of thing was I'll just pack tomorrow in a frenzy. And I did. It might have looked smooth, but the actual frenzied act itself was insane. Basically, I came over for the last haul at 6 p.m. and I was just tearing shit out of my dresser and shoving them into bags and throwing it in a van.
It's just so optional the way you did it.
My thinking around it was what if I want to wear these clothes the day of? I can't decide on my outfit for tomorrow. That's too much. So I'll just leave all of my clothes unpacked.
If it was all packed, then the day of the move, you unpack at the other side and then you have access to all of your clothes again.
But I was like, what do I want to wear while I'm moving? It's too much, Michelle. I know you don't understand the complex process of thoughts. You don't understand the complex process of thoughts behind this, and that's okay. You don't get it. No one does. No one gets it, man. But fuck me dead. Lockdown, this is the most uninteresting thing to say about it, but I just really want to vent and whine about it. This lockdown is so shit. This lockdown is so shit. A couple of days after the move, when I was sitting in my new little study, working away at my day job, I made the mistake of looking up facts and stats about when we might get out of this. And I think the pressure of, the actual pressure of having to move house meant that I could just really just push away a lot of this stuff. But as soon as I looked that up, I threw myself into a state so bad, I basically had to message my boss being like, I can't work for the rest of the day. And then I had to have a bath and cry in it for about half an hour.
I think that's a good reaction, because the reaction I keep having, the weird part about being still at work and still just working, not even at home, but going to work because it is quote unquote an essential industry and we're taking precautions and all of that, is that we're there. And then the editor and the director and I will suddenly, it'll be usually me or the assistant, will be looking at the phone and go, holy shit, 1,500 cases in New South Wales. And then we'll all in a circle stand there and go, whoa, we're never getting out of this. We've totally fucked it. Oh my God. And then we just sort of stand there. And then a few seconds later, we'll go, okay, right. I'll go send that email and do that turnover. All right. I guess we have to get back to it.
It's so bizarre. You have to everyone stands around, they're like, yeah, man, that's the vibe at work, is that everyone that you work with, it's like, this is an unprecedented time. This is fucked. You've really got to take the time to just take care of yourself. The world isn't normal. So why are we pretending it is? Anyway, if you could have that job done by the end of the day, that'd be great.
We were so
my
close
employers
to
are trying to be like, my employers are trying to be like, we get it. Right now it's so hard and we've never gone through anything like this. Anyway, please perform to your usual capabilities. Yeah. And I'm like, no,
I've expressed
it's not going to happen.
So much anger to everyone around me about how, on this film, all of the deadlines are expected to stay the same, even though obviously it's harder to film and finalize a movie in lockdown. My partner's doing university and they're all like, yeah, lockdown's really hard, but if you could all do your assignments on regular time. It's like, no, I actually can't. You taught me how to paint over Zoom and then now it's really difficult to replicate emotionally.
Yeah.
Why can't we just give each other a break? It's really hard.
I need some fucking time. I just need to crawl into a little ball and absolutely pass away.
But speaking of things that make me want to curl up and cry into a ball, this week we watched Nutty Professor 2, The Klumps, which is neat. I like how we've kept the speaking of format to intro our podcast.
Oh, we've kept it because also in the past when I've deviated from it, you're like, what the fuck? Where's my segue?
I like repetition. I like structure.
I know you do. I remember, I think one episode I launched right into it. I think I just went, so this week we watched and you were like, whoa, hang on. That's not right.
Speak English, dog.
I speak Greek, not geek. God, Zoom did so much for me on a personal level.
If you guys haven't listened, underrated entry in the bad movie canon. Absolutely.
An underrated performance by Rip Torn in those 3 scenes.
And he's got some good performances.
But we did watch Nutty Professor 2, The Klumps. And I want to say straight off the bat, I didn't do the research for this one in that I didn't watch the first one in preparation.
That's fine. It was my episode anyway.
Well, yeah, I watched The Nutty Professor as a kid, so I figured I would remember enough about it to be able to carry me through Nutty Professor 2. Oh boy, did I not.
No.
I forgot that, well, I definitely forgot that Buddy is this presence that can detach himself from the Nutty Professor.
Well, no. Sort of.
That's not what happens in the first one? I thought the first one was he could turn into Buddy.
Well, okay. Let me run it down really quickly because
the lore of this universe is so comprehensive.
Because of Abby's move and me finishing up 18 weeks of work on this feature, this episode got delayed a couple of times. So I used that time to go back. So I watched The Nutty Professor 1963, the original Jerry Lewis movie, and then the Nutty Professor 1996, the Eddie Murphy remake, and then Nutty Professor 2, The Klumps, the actual movie of the week.
You've done your research this week. Kudos, Michelle. I take my hat off to you. I'm not wearing a hat, so I have nothing to take off my hat with, but I bow my head to you.
Thank you.
I scratch my head to you. I tuft my hair to you.
Oh, a little tuft.
Yeah, a little hair zhuzh for you.
Just to get everyone on the same page, to get you on the same page as the audience. In the original Nutty Professor 1963, the scientist whose name I've forgotten, but he's a university teacher, similar.
Does he have the same name as
No, it's
in
not
this one?
Sherman Klump. It's something else.
Okay.
I will look it up. But the Jerry Lewis character, his whole thing is that he's a big dork. He's just total extreme nerd. Like the original one is almost like a more of a Charles Atlas thing, where he's a total dork. And then one of his students, who looks like a 45-year-old man, but wearing a Letterman jacket in university. Any American listeners, please tell me if that's a thing, because as far as I understand from American pop culture, that's a high school thing. That seems wild to me that a 20-year-old would still be wearing a fucking Letterman jacket. What a dork. Anyway, he gets up and starts basically the movie equivalent of beating up the professor of the class in front of the class during class time. So he invents a serum because of that to make him cool, which leads to this great scene where he's like, because it's loosely based on Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right?
Right.
So there's this scene where like lightning is striking and it's dark and you see him, his like face goes all red and purple and growths on him and he's like transforming and it seems hideous and evil. And then hard cut to like POV shot walking down a street and all these people looking at him completely shocked and blank-faced. And then he enters this club and then we finally see him and it's Jerry Lewis in a like sky blue suit with a hot pink shirt looking quote unquote cool as hell. And he knows how to play piano and also he's kind of a real dick.
Okay, so so the original premise is that it just makes him cool. There's a serum that makes him cool.
It makes him cool, but a jerk. Like it's representative of his id. And then at the end of it, he has a hard time controlling it and he runs out of the serum during the big like prom final end of year event thing. And he starts turning back into his professor self. And he does this really genuinely heartfelt speech to all of the students about like trying to be someone else and how you have to understand who you are and stuff. And then they end up loving and accepting him anyway, including the romantic interest, which is one of his students. And it's a really weird choice.
Oh.
That's how you know it was 1963.
Hang on. Wait. So sorry, wait. He's in the 1963 film, he's a professor at a uni,
yes,
not a high school. Okay. My question to you is, was it genuinely a good film? Did you have fun watching it? Would you watch it again? It
is regarded as one of Jerry Lewis's best. And I thought it was pretty good. I think there's things about like comedies from the early 60s and late 50s that don't age well, more intense in terms of things like pacing. Like it's really slow, like and it has a really loose sort of dramatic structure to it. But the jokes in it are funny. I had a good time. The dean of the university, who was played by, I remembered his name all week, but I forgot his name, standout performer in it. He was really fucking great. I don't know why, but his performance I thought was really funny. I would watch again. And then Eddie Murphy did a remake in the mid-90s in 1996. And a couple of the things were changed, one of which is now it's Sherman Klump, who is morbidly obese, and he plays the entire family except for Sherman's nephew, who is played by a child. And instead of it being a serum that makes you cool, it's a serum that makes you slim, but still being like a total jerk. So in the original, he turns into the slim version, which just looks like Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
But he does start losing control as Buddy Love, which has the same name in both the remake and the original, starts to try and take over, but through the help of his like assistant and the romantic interest played by Jada Pinkett Smith in that one, He comes back and everyone's like, oh, but Sherman, we love you. And it's just that thing that we've talked about of striding the line where it's like half the jokes in this movie are about shaming Sherman for being fat. But then the movie is also like everyone adores who he is as a person and loves that he is fat. Like no one wants him to lose weight apart from his boss.
Wait, so Janet Jackson wasn't in the first one as the romantic lead because she is in The Nutty Professor to the Klumps as Denise, the romantic lead.
Yes.
So she's not set up as a character in the first one?
No. Between the movies, Jada Pinkett didn't want to come back, so they just wrote it as like, oh, they got together, but then they broke up, and then now he's dating this other woman, Denise Gaines, played by Janet Jackson, who does a fucking great job, I think.
She's not bad. She's not bad. They definitely could have done worse. Janet Jackson is like definitely some good star quality appeal. But okay, so that's good. And like, just to check, at the end of the first, I'm needing all this thorough lore and backstory here. At the end of the first one, again, I really overestimated how much I did remember of the Nutty Professor. I was like, yeah, the Nutty Professor. He's a overweight professor that gets slim, kind of, in some way or another. And he plays all of his family members. But I didn't remember enough of it. So just to clarify, at the end of the first one, Buddy, how does Buddy go away? Why does Buddy go away?
It's like, it's almost
why is he called Buddy and not still Sherman? Because he's just a thinner version of Sherman.
It happens because like when he first emerges, Sherman has more control over him, but he's like pretending to be someone else to like live the life of a thin, cool person is the premise. And so he's like asked, oh, who are you? Where's Sherman? And he's like, oh, my name's Buddy Love. But then he becomes his own entity, and the first movie posits that because of his outrageously high testosterone levels is why he's a total dick.
Well, yeah, the way
Really
that
odd
Buddy
choice.
speaks to women in the entire film is really uncomfortable, especially because they set up at the beginning that Sherman has a love interest called Denise and he's on his way to go visit her at the university. And on the way, he's like catcalling every woman because Buddy is like overtaking him again. So basically, the premise of Nutty Professor 2 is that the serum that was used to make him Buddy is still in him and Buddy is still trying to come out of him at certain points.
Yeah, Buddy's coming back.
And then in the film, him and Buddy separate.
Yes.
But then he's getting dumber because of it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll get into it in the overview.
You will. I'm asking you these questions because fuck me dead, I watched the film with my full attention and I was still so confused half the time.
Oh, part of why I went back and watched the original and the first Eddie Murphy one was because I watched the first 20 minutes of Nutty Professor 2 and I was like, oh, I can't dive in. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, whereas I dived in and what the fuck is going on?
Because you start, if you haven't seen it, you start and it's this like church sequence because Sherman's about to get married. You know, we're seeing all of the family members in what is actually kind of a good explanation of the vibe of each of the family members.
Yeah.
And then as he's about to finally get married, he suddenly gets a giant erection and everyone's like, oh, whoa. And you're like, this is a little stranger than the movie I thought I was watching. And then out of his pants emerges Eddie Murphy's head. And you go, wait, hang on. What fucking movie am I watching? And then he busts out and says, I'm Buddy Love and I'm back, Sherman. And then he grabs Janet Jackson and then Sherman wakes up and it was a dream. But like, if you don't know who Buddy Love is, it's the most insane thing you've ever seen.
And I didn't know who Buddy Love was. And I was like, this is a fever dream. I don't even know. I don't necessarily have the time on my hands to go and watch the first one, but God, I wish I understood what's going on. Also, the fact that I now find out that Janet Jackson wasn't in the first one is even more ridiculous because even people that have seen the original are probably like, who the fuck is she? Like, where has she come from?
You're like, oh, it's the wedding between Sherman and, wait, Janet Jackson?
Yeah. Good on Jada Pinkett Smith for knowing her worth and not returning to this project. You know what? That's a win for feminism.
Well, hey, to be fair, she didn't do Nutty Professor 2 because she was busy filming The Matrix 3. So let's not give too much cred where it's not necessarily deserved.
I recant my previous statement and I apologize to anyone offended or affected by what I said. Can I have the overview?
Oh, yeah. Let me do the overview. So first to get into some key details. Yeah, so this came out in 2005, so actually quite a while after the original. And the director was Peter Segal, who I didn't recognize as a name. And then I saw he did Anger Management and 50 First Dates, both with Adam Sandler. both, I think, some of Adam Sandler's better movies.
Yeah, 50 First Dates is genuinely a really sweet film. Like, I used to rewatch it all the time as a kid. If it was on free-to-air TV, I went out of my way for 50 First Dates. I pushed aside my own social life for 50 First Dates, and I would do it again. If you were like, Abigail, me and Brooke got engaged, and we're having an engagement party, and it's really important to me that you'd come. But I found out that night that on Channel 10 at 7:30, 50 First Dates was getting shown. You're not going to see a glimpse of me. I'll be on my couch being touched emotionally.
I feel like I had that with Anger Management, a movie that on reflection does not hold up to social scrutiny and almost definitely doesn't hold up to critical scrutiny. However, 10-year-old me watched it like a whole bunch, 30, 40, 50 times. Why does anyone trust my opinion in movies? What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, and the screenplay, I just wrote down 4 people because, you know those screenplays that are written by too many people that you're like, oh, this isn't written by one person. Like, it's not written by someone.
When you see that it's written by more than 2 people, you're like, what a fucking mess. Like,
I don't even know if there's a single ampersand there. It's all ands. So the movie starring Eddie Murphy, obviously, as I think 7 different people, maybe 8. Janet Jackson, Larry Miller playing the dean of the university, and Wanda Sykes very briefly at one point. But there's not that many characters.
Wait, I totally missed Wanda Sykes.
She's the hairstylist of the mum and the grandma.
Oh my God, I didn't even recognize her.
Yeah.
Didn't even recognize her. She had a very particular hairstyle on that I just did not. She had like the little blonde hair.
She did, yeah. But the budget was $84 million.
How much did it make?
It does not warrant that much money, and it made 166, which given the advertising budget means that I don't think they really made much money from this.
Because that's the thing, right? It's like, yeah, technically it made a lot of money, but it spent so much money creating it that the profits were dismal. That's a bad return.
That is a bad return. Why did you make The Nutty Professor 2 for $84 million?
You can't even claim that it went to the cast because it had fucking 3 cast members. Yeah, thanks to Eddie Murphy.
Better have not made 7 people's salaries. Like, that's...
I'm sure he makes 7 people's salaries even if he's only playing one role in a film because it's Eddie Murphy.
Because he's Eddie Murphy. Here's the actual overview. University professor and scientist Sherman Klump has invented a de-aging formula, but finalizing his breakthrough is complicated by his deep love for his colleague Denise Gaines, and that Buddy Love, Sherman's id-based alter ego, is still in his head and is beginning to take control of his body. After Buddy's interruptions ruin Sherman's proposal to Denise, he rapidly creates a new formula to rid himself of Buddy permanently. However, Buddy's now loose genetic material goo bonds with a dog hair, bringing him to life. It's the best way I could explain it. Sherman quickly discovers that the separation is causing him to lose his intelligence. Meanwhile, Sherman's father Cletus finds the formula and takes it to become young himself and revivify his sex life. Doing so uses the last of the formula, and Sherman's attempt to recreate it for a presentation goes awry, losing him his job in the process. Despondent and lost, Sherman realizes his only chance before total brain decay is to reabsorb Buddy. Confronting Buddy while Buddy is trying to sell Sherman's formula, they turn him back into a baby and then into goo. But the gooey Buddy escapes to a water fountain, and Sherman loses almost all of his intelligence. A tearful Denise pledges to take care of Sherman, but then realizes that all Sherman needs to do is drink the gooey Buddy in the water fountain to regain his intelligence. He does so, they get married, and it's all G. Bro.
Up top, bruh. Yeah.
Yeah, nailed it. This movie has those kinds of plot points that when you watch it, you're like, huh? And then you write it down and you're like, huh? What?
You did a very good job because I think your overview explained a few things to me that I couldn't quite fathom.
Great, excellent.
This film had so many threads going on, like so many storylines.
Yeah.
Like the fact that there was obviously Sherman's storyline, but there was also the storyline with his parents trying to fuck and like not being horny for each other. And then you've also got Buddy trying to like take the formula and sell it as well. And he's got his own scheme. I just felt like there was so many different threads in this film, but like, I guess really there was only 3, but it felt like they were all so strange and scattered. I could barely harness what was going on in the film.
Yeah, I feel like the main critique of this movie from every angle is just like, it somehow has so much and yet not a lot is going on at any given time.
Yeah,
Like, it's a really loose movie that detracts from what Sherman is doing constantly.
I feel like what I remember of The Nutty Professor are those famous dinner scenes where all the characters that Eddie is playing are around the same table and they're all like feeding off of each other and like they fight and they
Feeding
chat
off
over
of
one
each
another.
other.
They feed off of each other for dinner. No, but I mean like the characters chat and
Which is very different.
I'll never mention the phrase feeding off each other if dinner is involved, just to make things clear in the future. But I remember those scenes the most, and those scenes take up so much time because it's just like people kind of it's almost like it seems like it's unscripted because they're just actually chatting over one another. It's not like a normal film thing of someone says something and then someone responds. They're all like mumbling over one another, and they take like 10 minutes each. And I feel like half of the film are those scenes, but those are the only scenes I remember from being a kid.
Which, like, I understand makes it feel more like a real family. It's just that it's not interesting dialogue. Like, I think that's the main thing. It's not interesting dialogue. You can have scenes that are like people talking over each other and talking a lot. The West Wing built 7 seasons on it.
I'm sorry, but 6 different iterations of the same fart joke. You're saying that's not interesting dialogue? That's what you're saying to me. That's very like fart phobic of you, to be honest. That's disgusting.
Yeah, no, I'm so sorry.
You're shaming people for bodily functions. We're all human, Michelle. Sorry, this has been a long time coming, all right?
Yeah.
You've said some derogatory things about farts in the past, and I'm putting my foot down.
If anyone shames bodily functions, it's me, Michelle St. Clair, saying this of my own volition with no gun pointed to my hand.
She's so dainty. She's never taken a shit in her life.
What the listeners at home don't know is that I'm actually 4'8".
So small. I can't even see you on the screen.
So
like you're lapsing in and out of visibility because I can barely make you out, and you're right there.
All you can see is just my eyes and forehead, and that's me sitting at my computer.
But you can't readjust the camera at all. That's impossible.
It's too high up. I can't reach.
It's too high up. Poor little Michelle. Also, I feel like we've done a really good job of not telling viewers about how much you've shat your pants.
Shut up.
How has that not come up?
Fuck off.
Why has that not come up in this pod? We've been here for a year and we haven't talked about the fact that you have chronically shat your pants as an adult.
No, we don't need to. What if they think I'm cool?
You loser, you stinky loser. That's all the emails we'll get in the future.
No.
I stopped listening because I found out Michelle St. Clair has IBS. Betrayed.
Just shit my pants. So there's 1 year where it was like 3 times within 3 months. Like it was
100%. It was your trademark to arrive late.
It's not my fucking trademark.
I think it's great. Every good hero needs a vulnerability. And
so in the Nutty Professor, they were trying. What I really appreciated about what they were doing.
I'm not done here, Michelle.
To be honest, though, like for one thing, I couldn't believe that it was another movie about the elixir of youth. Like immediate flashbacks to Shaggy Dog. Stop introducing a youth formula because it, for me, greatly complicates what's going on. Like, this should be international news. This came out in 2005. There was the internet. There's no way that some fucking post somewhere didn't go, fuck, this guy invented a de-aging formula. 9 out of 10 dermatologists hate him. You know?
I want to see some more Nutty Professor-oriented clickbait articles. Thank you so much. That's what I'm missing from my internet
A photo
browsing.
of someone peeling off their skin, you know?
Yeah, of Eddie Murphy removing his prosthetics. Dermatologists hate him. No, I was thinking there's that bit where like the dean and Justine have just watched him take a dog and like turn him into a smaller dog, like reverse the effects of aging on a dog. And they're like, whoa, this is huge. And it's like, yeah, you should tell the press right now. Like you have the evidence right in front of you.
It shouldn't be as hard as it seems to be to sell this to people. Like,
this is astounding.
Fucking Peter Thiel, real life billionaire, it started transfusing his blood with younger people's blood because he thought it would make him be younger and live forever because he's a literal Bond villain. And you're telling me that Sherman Klump literally invented an de-aging serum and one place was like, we'll give you $150 million. That's fucking pissing money compared to how much this should. Dropbox is worth billions. You're telling me Dropbox is more valuable?
I have a question to ask you, Michelle.
Yeah.
If there was a serum that could make you younger, would you take it?
That's an interesting question because stupid.
What are you talking about? You're already a baby.
I don't know. I don't know if I would, to be honest. As much as I constantly have such a complex and fear about getting older, not in the way that I feel like for a lot of people it's a lot about physically, but for me it's just, I don't know, we value a lot of people in industries that we like that are very, very young.
Yeah.
And I, as someone who feels like I didn't get much of a childhood, get irrationally sad about the feeling of lost time. So, but at the same time, I don't think I would, because I would just be way too stuck in the ethics of like, well, if we're changing fundamentally what it means to be a human being, if we can just get younger at any time, like how we do everything as people changes. And I don't know if I could emotionally handle that without feeling like I was betraying some undefined principle I have.
God damn it, Michelle. You really had to pull ethics and like these intellectual principles about what it is to be a human, because fuck yeah, I'd make myself younger. I want to be hot forever.
You are hot. You're fucking 26 and hot. What are you talking about?
I want to be 20 and hot.
Dude,
I want to be
why?
20 and hot forever. I feel like the only thing I think I am at my hottest at the moment, like I feel like I am actually like peaking as a person. As I get older, I become a more defined human being inside and out, and I'm enjoying the way that I look and the way that I present myself to the world. But I also wish that I could go back to being 18 and I could actually just treat my body better and be more healthy, eat better, have exercised more, or have actually like just cultivated better habits. Because I feel like now I'm 26, I'm finally like, fuck, I treat my body like shit. I am ready to treat my body better. I wish I was doing that when I was 20. I wish I was.
Yeah, I wish I could have transitioned sooner.
I can imagine. I feel like the question is more like, you can be who you are now, but just younger. And your body can like be a bit more like, I don't know, soft and untampered.
Well, because then there's the different question, which is if you could be 10 again, would you? In which case, I mean, yeah, it's hard to ask a trans person, would you like keep your consciousness and go back to being younger and do it again? It's like, yeah, because I would do it so differently.
Yeah, and like you'd have a lot more like wisdom coming into it as well. And yeah, it is a totally different question. Whereas I'm just like, I want to be hot. That's it. I just wish that I treated my body better. Yeah. I'm okay with being the bimbo of this podcast, by the way. That's fine.
Well, yeah, okay, there's two of us. I'll be the one who unnecessarily brings in ethics, but also decides to have a recurring bit as some sort of eternal mother figure. And you're the bimbo who wants to be hot. I'm the
bimbo baby.
You're the bimbo baby who likes being hot, but also likes to yell about disgusting men. It's great. I think this is a good dynamic.
I do spend a lot of time yelling. It is true.
Yeah. I think guys, you know, we're not that many episodes in, but we're finally figuring out the real dynamic of the podcast.
We've really got the dynamic down. We've got wise mother figure and bimbo baby, and that's all we needed.
But honestly, one of the things I really appreciated about Nutty Professor...
I think you should just listen to yourself say that for a second. Let's go back.
No, because I stand by what I'm about to say. Because obviously it is silly, it's slow, and it's not very good. But fuck is it trying to do interesting things with the camera. Like,
is it?
I think it was. Like, what I kept comparing this to was both Ouija and Big Mama's House 3. Big Mama's House 3 because that's also a broad slapstick comedy aimed at black audiences starring someone in a fat suit. Mm-hmm. And then Ouija as the complete opposite of, like, the least effort I've ever seen put into a movie possible.
Yeah.
This was doing a lot of, like... The music swells at various points. Like, Denise and Sherman have a genuine connection that makes me sad. There's the whole, like, love is a many splendid thing sequence where the grandma's having a dream of her and Buddy Love in love, and they're, like, running through a field while the song plays, and then it cuts to them in like a hot tub, and she's about to go down on him, and then he does a scream of delight, but that has pre-roll of the next scene where everyone else is going because there's a stripper, and it's this great audio overlap. Like, they're being cinematically engaging. They're doing a lot of cool things with the camera.
It is like a fun film, because that's the thing. Like, this is what I wanted to say from the get-go. I could watch this film again very easily because Eddie Murphy is so charismatic and fun, and the direction, as you say, it was definitely like it was I didn't find it too slow. I found it like a fairly like decently paced film that was doing a lot of fun jokes that were often very stupid, and it had a really great performer in a lot of roles. So I could easily watch it again. But I will say, it's funny that you think that Justine and Sherman have a great connection, because I was watching every scene with Justine being like, this is really about how much a woman can endure with a subpar man. Because I was like, why are you sticking by this guy?
The whole point of the movie is that Sherman Klump isn't a subpar man. He's a nice man who's very sweet to her, and she loves his intelligence.
Yes, but he spends a lot of the film getting dominated by Buddy saying shitty things. And if I was dating Sherman and then all of a sudden, inexplicably, he said that my mom had great tits, I'd be like, we're done. Like, I don't want a man like this in my life. So we know it's not Sherman, but she doesn't know that.
He does kind of try and do that, and then Sherman apologizes. Look, a genuine critique of the movie is that because we haven't seen them get together, as you say, the way that Buddy makes Sherman treat her would normally make her fuck off.
Yeah, Sherman's a great guy, but obviously Buddy is not a great guy. And the way that he treats her throughout the film, she's incredibly patient. She's always there being like, Sherman, oh my God. And I'm like, bitch, get out. That guy, like, if that was me, I'm just saying, I'm calling it bestie. I'm just telling you. I'm really passive aggressive. I'm like, aw,
yeah,
that's cute. You love him? Bestie. I'm calling it. He's out. This is me while I'm doing like manicuring my own nails next to her at the salon. She's in tears.
I'm glad I've never had a partner you didn't like. I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, when they're at the fountain, to tangent, to talk about the ending, the whole like they come across Buddy Love, they turn him into a baby, which also means everyone around the table who didn't know how this formula works, watch a man turn into a baby and then into goo. That would break my brain. Yeah. And then the goo escapes because the goo can move and it gets flung across and they chase after it, and then the goo evaporates next to the water fountain.
The goo can move. By God, the goo can move.
Boy, that goo can move.
It seems like this like weird like a euphemism that a scientist would say in like the middle of the film. It's like what Jeff Goldblum would say in Jurassic Park, where he's like, well, the goo can move.
Life finds a goo.
Goo finds a move.
Oh, I like that one, yeah. Sherman's a little too late. It's intercut with this timer running out, and also this kind of really well done montage of him flicking through all these moments of the movie of Buddy Love being inside of him and the things he's lost, and sort of like realizing what he's lost and how he has failed now that his brain function is very limited. And then Denise and Cletus, Sherman's dad, come across him, and there's this scene like Denise knows what's happening and is like, oh no, and is really upset. And Cletus is just standing there going, what's wrong? What's wrong with Sherman? I don't understand. Like, clearly trying to wrap his head around the fact that his son is different now. And Denise starts not going like, why didn't you tell me? Oh, we didn't do it. Oh no. She instead does the much more tragic and sweet thing and goes, it's okay. I'll take care of you. We'll figure it out. Like, I'll just take care of you. Like, I'm like, she's still going to marry him and she's going to take care of him. Maybe it's because I have a sister with strong disability needs, but there's just something about the way that she was like, I'll take care of you, someone who has a lot of high needs now, that really genuinely got me going. Aww. And then she cried into the water and it started glowing and it was really silly and it kind of ruined it. But that was a sweet moment in the movie.
It was. It's so funny, though, because I remember I was watching that scene and I was getting sad about it because I was like, man, like Denise has been really like thrown around in this film, getting constantly hurt and confused by things Sherman has been doing to her. And now that he's like losing the thing that attracts her most to him, which is his mind and his like intellectual prowess. Like she says to like, you're the I've never met a guy like you. Like, you're a really special person and you're brilliant and you're smart. Like, that's what she loves about him. And she's watching it fade away and she's saying, it's okay, I'll take care of you. And I'm like, I was getting sad thinking about women that have to be caregivers to subpar men in their lives. I'm not saying that this is a slightly different analogy. I was just getting sad about women that throw their own lives away to take care of a partner that is not basically like suitable for them or like good enough for them. And I was like literally just getting sad on this weird feminist point of view of like, don't throw your life away. Don't throw your life away. You don't owe him anything.
Wow. Abigail
I know.
Ward.
Cancel me, man.
I just want to talk about another one of the really, I would say, notable set pieces where Sherman has this presentation to the press about this de-aging formula, but he's realized that he's losing his intelligence. And because Cletus has taken the intelligence, and by the way, I did not understand the familial relationship of literally any of the family. I had to look it up after the movie.
I knew that Cletus was his
everything
dad.
Else I understood.
And then obviously his mom was the woman that wanted to get railed every night by Cletus. And then his grandma was obviously just the older woman.
Yeah. And then there's the guy with the goatee who is his older brother.
Oh, okay. Yeah, did not get that at all.
It's like a contrast. He's like a dropout, and then Sherman's a university professor.
There you go.
His character is the least established of the family, probably, but yeah, so he then has to do this presentation. Cletus has taken the formula to become young again, and then because he really wants to have sex with his wife, including at one point telling the story again of how he first looked at her and immediately wanted to date her, and that was kind of sweet. Doesn't have the formula, so he has to try and make it again, but he doesn't know how because he doesn't have the intelligence. So he's trying to describe it to the press, and then he's like, okay, well, we'll get this hamster to drink it. And then the hamster transforms immediately into this giant monster hamster.
Yeah.
And my immediate thought was like, okay, this is scary for all of the people in the room, but everyone is treating him like he's an idiot. But giant monster serum is also cool and valuable and probably worth $150 million. Like, giant monster serum is cool.
I'm glad you brought up the scene because this is the scene I wanted to talk about as well, but for a slightly different reason. But you're absolutely
you
right.
Didn't go giant monster serum is cool?
No, I had more of a my takeaway from that scene was definitely the bit where the giant hamster monster raped the dean of the university. That for me was what really stuck with me and something that I felt like I had to bring up and address. Yeah. I told you, Michelle, that I refuse to watch rape on scene and in films, and I thought it was an oversight on your part to make me watch a dean get raped by a giant monster hamster.
I'm so sorry. But he does do the comedic, like when it happens, he's about to yell out, but instead he lets out an operatic note. Fun fact, not a trivia, fun fact. Larry Miller improvised the operatic note.
Wow. How creative. But you're absolutely right. Making giant evil monster serum, pretty damn cool. And whilst it is terrifying to be in that role, it's like, wow, you've still achieved something incredible.
Yeah. You're telling me no military or animal scientist wants giant monster serum for $150 million? Like, you nailed it, man.
But I gotta say, man, watching Larry Miller, the guy that played
Larry
Dean,
Miller. Yeah.
Being on all fours, getting mounted by a giant hamster and letting out an operatic scream, and then later saying that everyone was calling him the hamster's bitch and he has tattered clothes on the back of his jacket because the hamster's really just like clawed into him while fucking him. He took getting raped by a giant monster hamster pretty well. He just got angry at Sherman being like, I'm his bitch. Everyone's saying I'm his bitch. And I'm like, if I got raped by a giant monster hamster, I would just absolutely mentally, physically fall apart.
Yeah,
crumble.
I can't tell if I think it's good that he doesn't let it go after that. He actually has a lot of emotional trauma from it because it was a traumatic thing to happen. Or if, hey, man, like, why... I can deal with him, with that happening as like an offhanded joke in some ways, even though it probably shouldn't have been a joke in the movie.
Yeah.
But it's the him being so sad and traumatized by it that actually for me was less funny. Him later being like, I feel so bad about it. Everyone was making fun of me. I'm like, people were making fun of you? That's so cruel. Why did they do that?
That little kid saying, look, mommy, it's the hamster's bitch. It's like that kid just watched a man get raped by a giant monster hamster and it's fucking, it's victim blaming. That's what it is.
Desensitization from video games,
Did you see what Larry Miller was wearing though? Like he was absolutely asking for it. He shouldn't have been out at that time of day if he wasn't asking for it. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah, in that suit. Ooh.
Yeah, in that little low-cut, double-breasted suit. What you asking for?
If he was wearing the gold rings that he wears in Princess Diaries, Yeah, in Princess Diaries, then, then I can understand.
He's excellent in The Princess Diaries, but also The Princess
is.
Diaries is just excellent by itself.
He's also really good in, he's in a bunch of the Christopher Guest ones, but I particularly like him in Best in Show, where he's like, his son's on a roof threatening to jump, and he's like, I'm a hostage interrogator. I do this for a living. And then he looks up and he's like, I will jam your eye out with a thumb. And they're all like, no, that's terrible. He's like, the trick is they always jump. There's nothing you could do.
You're making me want to rewatch Best in Show.
Do it. Always rewatch Best in Show. It's a great movie. Before we pivot into the next section, I will leave you on a quote from the movie that Buddy Love says when he's yelling out to Sherman as he's fading away, "Woo, I'm going to pee in your pants." Would you like to hear some trivia, Abby?
Yes, I would.
IMDb trivia! Here's just a little fun one to start with. Kathleen Freeman, who plays the noisy neighbor, remember when Sherman is proposing, or he's going to propose, and he has a mariachi band, which seems like, is it actually a thing in California? I feel like I see it in so many movies. It's just roaming mariachi bands. Anyway, there's this neighbor who's like, you're doing great. And then later is like, you're disgusting, when Buddy Love makes him say gross things. She's actually in the original Nutty Professor as one of the other teachers, I think. Millie Lemon. Yeah.
Good name.
Here's a less fun piece of trivia. Eddie Murphy was originally meant to portray two more characters in the movie. An Asian character named Mr. Kwan and this is just all it says in quotes, and a Jewish woman.
Oh.
While these characters were ultimately cut for the movie, makeup test busts of the character were completed.
Oh, my goodness.
You know what? Good call. Great call to cut it.
You know what's so interesting? I feel like there's a good way and a bad way to depict cross-dressing with it on film. Like sometimes cross-dressing can verge into transphobia in this strange way. It's almost like making jokes about how like ugly the person cross-dressing is, or like how unnatural it is. This never did that. Like if in the weirdest way, Eddie Murphy playing like his mother, the character of his mother, you could really tell that Eddie Murphy knew women like this, and it wasn't even like, it wasn't a malicious portrayal. It was quite a like I feel like I'm reading too deeply into the Nutty Professor 2 here, but I definitely feel like it was quite a nice understanding portrayal of like a middle-aged black woman with kids whose life is her family and just wants love from her husband. I was like, this is a nice representation of women. This is how you do cross-dressing on screen. Like this is how you portray people of different genders on screen. Like
I think part of the difference is that the joke isn't that he's playing a female character. The female character he plays has jokes.
Yes.
Right? And
exactly.
I feel like his portrayal of the mother, Anna, is maybe the best out of the Klumps as well.
I
it's
think
certainly
so
the
too.
best makeup out of all
like
of them.
she's actually, Anna's quite touching. She just wants Cletus. She wants Cletus to want to have sex with her and like love her still. And like there's that bit where she says to Cletus like, "Oh, you only want to have sex with like younger people. Like it's like you regret marrying me because I've turned into a fat old woman." And I was just like, "Oh, that's so sad."
He never really plays like the grandma character is like, oh, isn't it funny that an old woman is saying sexual things? That's crazy. But like the joke isn't that he's playing these characters.
Yeah.
Which is, but it also makes you question why? Why?
Yeah.
Why do it at all?
100%.
But I'm really glad because him doing whiteface in Vampire in Brooklyn, something that we talked about back in that episode, was like kind of fun and almost punk rock. Him playing an Asian character, Mr. Kwan, and a Jewish woman.
And a Jewish woman.
Very much like punching down.
Yes, I agree. Him playing a Guido in Vampire in Brooklyn was just excellent. It was great.
Here's another one. The film was made with the help of Jerry Lewis. He was an executive producer for both this film and the 2000 sequel, The Klumps. Oh, sorry, that I guess is a piece of trivia for both the original and this. In 2009, he expressed his regrets for allowing the remakes, saying, "I have such respect for Eddie, but I should not have done it. What I did was perfect the first time around, and all you're going to do is diminish that perfection by letting someone else do it."
Well, yeah, I was going to ask, did the first Nutty Professor have good reviews? Like, did people like it? Was it well respected?
Yeah. The first Eddie Murphy one?
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it did. Roger Ebert did like the original in particular.
Well, I trust Roger Ebert. Did you enjoy the first one when you watched it?
I think, like, you know how we said this is, it has problems, but there's parts of it that are genuinely funny?
Yeah.
It's like less of the problems. So you can tell how that would lead to, oh, well, that's a lot better.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem is that the first one is way too hyperfixated on fat versus skinny. And, like I said, it does the thing where it's like the overall message is, hey, it's okay to be fat. But it gets there by spending 100 minutes saying you're disgusting and terrible and awful and every joke is at your expense. And like, that's not nice.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. And then here's maybe the most upsetting piece of trivia. In 2021, Murphy revealed plans for a new sequel.
No.
To be titled Nutty Professor 3, The Klumps. But it should be noted that this time the Klumps is spelt with a C instead of with a K. Don't know why.
Okay.
And this threw me. Murphy has stated that the third movie will contain, quote, hard truths. And I'm terrified to find out what that means.
Hard truths and chronic gore.
Yeah, to find out what, like, millionaire egotist Eddie Murphy thinks the hard truths in Nutty Professor 3 should be, absolutely terrifying.
Oof.
Absolutely terrifying. Do you want to hear some reviews?
I do.
Reviews! So first off, Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 3 stars out of 4, calling it a movie that's like a thumb to the nose for everyone who said Murphy had lost it. He's very good, and the movie succeeds in 2 different ways. It's sweet and good-hearted, and then again, it's raucous, slapstick, and bathroom humor. I liked both parts, which I thought was neat.
That is nice.
Here's an IMDb review titled The Funniest Movie of the Year by Quaydog.
What year did this come out? Like
this review.
The movie.
Oh, this movie came out in 2006, 2005. Not another 2006 yet.
Wait, so the first one was 1996 and this was 2005.
Yeah, quite a gap.
Yeah, quite a gap. But 2005 must have been a fucking shocking year for comedy.
Oh, I ran the numbers on our list after how many 2006 ones. 2006 does appear the most frequently on our list.
Weird.
Followed quickly by 2005.
Weird. What was with those 2 years? What happened there?
I think I do have a sneaking suspicion that it might also be the particular popularity of IMDb.
Okay.
Anyway, so the funniest movie of the year by Quaydog. I was a little reluctant about going to see the movie because a lot of the times the sequel does not live up to the original, and I hate being disappointed. But I was totally wrong. If you loved the original Nutty Professor, you will love the sequel. Although some will disagree with me, I believe that Janet Jackson did a great acting job and she still looks good. Eddie Murphy did an excellent job at all of his roles and is still one of the funniest people alive. 9.75 out of 10.
9.75.
Why bother? And then here is another one. This one's a little bit of a longer one. Called Absolutely Rib Splitting by R.J. Krieger.
You should go see a doctor for that. I want my ribs intact. That's why I stay firmly against Eddie Murphy movies.
You know that trombone?
Both.
I know. 10 stars seems excessive, but this is one of the funniest movies that I've ever seen. Top 5. This movie has got to be one of Eddie Murphy's all-time funniest. Bringing back and expanding on the funniest characters in The Nutty Professor was brilliant. I can't imagine that anyone would be so uptight as to not see the human in such blatantly rude and unacceptable social behavior. I mean, that's the point of it after all. If you pay the least bit of attention to the other people in the world around you, then the nuances of these characters, who would be culled directly from a lot of people's photo albums or family reunions, are just too real to be ignored. Between Grandma's biting remarks to Mama's hand-wringing, worried comments, it all culminates into the most hilarious story. Although the story does slow down drastically in the middle. I suppose that's what it takes to please people who do not realize they have come to see a comedy! But for watching with teenagers, this story is one of the best, especially since they are sure to be reminded of someone that they know. I give it a 10, just for the laughs. And who can say what Eddie Murphy's talent should get for carrying so many characters so believably through an entire movie? 100 stars, I'd say. 10 out of 10.
Nice. 10 out of 10, baby.
I mean, it does slow down drastically in the middle, but...
It really does.
But what's your review, Abigail?
My review... This film was very easy to watch. I like watching Eddie Murphy. And there was genuinely some bits that were quite nice and touching. Like, this is on the better end of the films that we've had to watch. I was dreading it. I was like, oh, Nutty Professor. But then getting into it, I was like, no, this is enjoyable. This is a film that on free-to-air TV I might have finished, even though it's shocking. It doesn't matter. Like, I think Eddie Murphy can carry a lot of things through. I would give it, because I didn't want to kill myself watching it, which is huge for me, I will give it, I guess, honestly, like a 3.8 out of 10. 3.9 maybe. 3.9.
I think that's fair. For me, like, when watching it, like I said, I was shocked by how much effort they were putting into the direction and how they're moving the camera and trying to tell jokes that aren't, like, you know, they do a lot of fart jokes, which can be quite lazy, but they also do a lot of jokes that I'm like, look, it's still broad, but you put a lot of effort into making that setup and payoff. I do think this movie falls into the problem of, like, the audience it's aimed for isn't the audience that are critics. Like, it's aimed to be a broad slapstick comedy for Black people, and a lot of critics are fucking poncy white people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I watched the original. I think the original is a better movie than this. And I mean the 1963 original. But also, I know I've seen critics who would speak effusively about slapstick movies from the 50s and 60s and, like, the Marx Brothers. And I don't fundamentally see that much of a difference between the Marx Brothers and the kind of broad comedy that I'm seeing in the Nutty Professor 1 and 2.
I mean, the Marx Brothers were a bit earlier, but also, like, Marx Brothers were, like, it was visual gags, but it was also, like, very particular wordplay, which isn't as present in a lot of, like, modern comedies, because the Marx Brothers were known for wordplay more than anything.
Sure. I guess I fixated on the Marx Brothers when I was thinking of them and the Three Stooges, for example.
Gotcha.
Like that, and Abbott and Costello, like those kind of old school broad comedians. And, you know, I don't know if we necessarily need to revere them more than any of this. This is still not great, but I think it put a lot of effort in. I was going to give it a 5.2, but I think I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to give it a 4.8.
Nice.
It's not quite good, but boy, it's trying to get there, you know?
It sure tried something.
So that was Nutty Professor 2. You can find us on social media on Twitter at RateDescendPod, on TikTok at RatingDescending, or you can email us at ratingdescending@gmail.com.
Or you can find us on our personal accounts. I am Abigail J. Ward on Instagram.
Or you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Michelle.St.Clair.
And don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It makes the world of difference.
And it makes me smile. So, what are we watching next week?
Next week, we are watching Species 2. And I know nothing about it at all.
Well, I understand that I am a species, so I'm keen to see the sequel.
And I am a species too, which really makes you think.
Speaking of dumb wordplay.
I guess I'm a regular Groucho. What can I say?
You know?
Duck soup. Yeah, love it.